I do, folks. How you doing? Just a quick one. Today we are be going to bounce, and bounce we shall. First of all, I want to start off by yesterday. I thought the website was under attack, my Trust Asset Protectors website. I've been told by a few of you, thank you very much for being persistent. I was told by a couple or so came to start off with saying I can't get onto your website. I had a look myself, I can get on fine, checked it on my phone as well, I can get on 2 different ways, yeah, it must be alright. And then somebody else said it, and then somebody else said it, and so hang on a minute. So I asked somebody else to check, and apparently it was coming up with something saying that it was trying to steal your information or financial information or data or something or other. I can assure you we don't steal data. I don't care for anybody's data, and nobody's data goes anywhere but me if it does come to me at all. It is absolute private and confidential, as I am. So there is no worries there. What it actually was, I presumed, because I could get on it and nobody else could, I presumed it was an attack, whereas it was just being masked from me. But no, as it turned out, my computer and phone had just loaded it out of the cache, and the reality was the security certificate had run out. Apparently, so my guy who looks after that sort of thing tells me it was actually set to auto renew, it just didn't auto renew for some reason, so folks were getting it like it was unsecure, or couldn't get in because it looked like it was insecure. You can get in now. So anybody that wanted to get into that, Trust Asset Protectors is back up and running, and we don't steal your data. But hey, don't sweat the little things, eh? Fucking steal your data. It's great how they start off at that place, isn't it? Right, anyway, one more thing I want to just bounce on to quickly, and it's quite a serious thing. A friend of Wonky Worlds, one of our very long-standing members who's bounced with us through all the groups as we've been cut down and restarted, he's got himself down some rabbit holes lately, and I wanted to give a warning because it's gone very, very wrong. Now, it's not about the law, this is more on a spiritual level. Now, I am fairly spiritual. I've gone down enough rabbit holes and I've learned enough about myself and the real world to know my truth. So I'm where I am. But unfortunately, folks who are looking for things can get a little bit carried away. And when it comes into spirituality, I mean, both sides of the coin can go over the top. You've got, as I call it, the extremist spiritualists who try to live as though they're living in a totally different realm and they don't accept that they're even here. That's too far in my opinion, and they're living for something else which comes after this experience, not while you're here. But that's beside the point. There's the other side of it, which is the dark side, which is very, very real and very, very dangerous. Now, I wouldn't advise anybody at all to go down that route. But if you are determined to go down that route, all I can say is find somebody in that realm that seems sane to you before you've gone into it. If on first meeting them you think they've absolutely lost the fucking plot, that ain't the guy. You need somebody who seems sane, so they've absolutely kept control of their faculties, and they need to guide you through that sort of shit. You need to be guided very, very carefully by folks who really know what they're doing and are still compos mentis. If they think they're living in another fucking world, or they're giving you silly things and telling you silly things all the time, be very, very careful. You've got lots of bad shit going on in that sort of realm, and it's not all evil entities, it's evil people. Hypnosis is real, extremely real. Now, hypnosis can be put into pen, or onto paper should I say, and a lot of this shit that folks are reading on the demonic side of things, you're told these spells and there are all sorts of things, but you can be told all sorts of shit, but basically you can be reading this shit and hypnotising your own subconscious, and you can fuck your life up, as this friend has just done. in a really big way, because he's gone down this route, from what I can see, gone down this route just on the internet and found folks on the internet and found things on the internet, and it's just gone too far, and now he's fucked. He is actually locked away at the minute because of it, and it prompted me to just give folks a real serious warning on this shit. It's not to be played with. It's not a game. Spiritualism isn't a game in itself, but when you get into the dark side of it, it certainly isn't a game, and it shouldn't be treated lightly or as a joke at all. Don't think that you can go into it blind and learn some shit, learn some spells. Just remember, you know, when you're reading shit that isn't in plain simple English, you don't really know what it is you're saying, and if somebody tells you it's one thing, it doesn't really mean it is. You don't know what you're doing to your own head. You really don't. And beyond that, you don't know what you're doing in the whole scheme of things. If you are casting spells out there into the world, whatever your beliefs are, you have no idea what you're playing with. That's not clever. So a big warning to folks, and it is a huge warning, because as I say, a friend's just found himself in an awful lot of trouble, personal trouble, not lawful trouble, and he is in quite a state. So big love to him, and hope you heal soon. I truly do. It isn't something that folks should play about with. That is my honest opinion. So bounce over with that one. Right, what shall we cover? I'm getting a fair few folks talking to me along lines of Magna Carta's Article 61, the blah 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 blah. If folks don't know where I stand on it by now, I'll tell you exactly. It doesn't work in a court. No court will agree with it. No court, in fact, courts have made judgment against it. So if you want to follow the reams of folks that are following the Pied Pipers there, by all means, I am absolutely done trying to explain that, because those that are down that route cannot be wavered from it, because it looks so pure and it looks so right on paper. It don't fly in a court. There are some times when using them sort of things will actually pull off, but that's not about what you're using. It's about the fact that you're standing in honour and you're not giving consent, which is what it's all about. Everything is done by consent in this world, and they're all corporations. You need to realise that. When you're thinking of the law, forget it, because you're going into these courts that are corporations. They're not operating under the law. They're operating under their own commercial codes. So, and not the universal commercial codes that America's thinking of, and they don't work either in England. So those that are shouting UCC in England, forget it. It doesn't work. It's not for here. It's American. It works in America. It doesn't work in England. And I won't keep repeating that. That is that. Because the same thing with the UCC folks are usually the same folks with the Magna Carta, and if not, they still all believe and believe and believe. But the reality is they see themselves. It fails. And if there are any wins, it's because they've remained in honour and they haven't given consent. It doesn't matter what else you're saying. If you remain in honour in a courtroom and you don't give consent, you cannot lose. That's absolute fact. It is fact. He who steps out of honour loses. Absolute. It's just the way it works. It's a game of chess. So it's all commerce. You need to learn how to not consent. Consent comes in many ways, and many ways that we're not going to get to cover, because I could list 1,000 ways and there'll be 1,000 more. It's the mindset you need to be in where you stop consenting, because once you've got your mindset that you're the man and not the person, you've got the distinction between the man and the person. You know and fully comprehend the distinction between the man and the person. You know damn well you are not the person, and from that point on you cannot be got. You can only be got while you can be shaken, and when you know it in absolute, you cannot be got. It's impossible. There are loads of other things that you can use for courts, and I know courts are behaving really wrong at the minute. Learn a little more. It means what you've learned, if your courts aren't working for you at the minute, or should I say they're never going to work for you, but if you can't shut them down at the minute, then it's because you've not followed the right steps, you've not done the right things, taken the right moves. Maybe you don't know enough and blah blah blah. It's not always a case of fault. In fact, it's very rarely a case of fault. They're at fault. The parasites, the scumbags, they're treasonous, and they're committing fraud on a daily basis. Every time you walk into that court, until you consent, there's a fraud being committed against the court itself. So if you learn these things and learn how to consent and not to consent, and learn when to consent to whatever you want to consent to, it isn't a blanket, I don't consent to anything. Now, there's a big misunderstanding with my sort of status and standing in the world. Now, folks seem to think that you're out in the cold if you evidence your private status. That's not the case at all. And in fact, in my paperwork, it clearly states that until such time that the remedy is granted that's within the paperwork and required, I have the right to stand as beneficiary any time I wish without any liability whatsoever. And that's because of the rest of the things that's obviously in my paperwork evidencing their crimes and such like, and the lack of my consent, the revocation of all contracts, the fact that the Vatican doesn't own my soul, and all of the other things that I cover. But there's a huge misconception now. The very fact that they don't come running to you and throw your black or white card at you, whichever you're requiring or what you're requiring, is just the very fact it's a treasonous, parasitical fucking crime syndicate, isn't it? That's something that folks have to decide whether they want to fight for and push for themselves and go down the steps. If you want to remove yourself from the corporate system, that's quite easy to actually do, but then you've got to stand on what you've done. Now, what you've got to think of, you're evidencing that you're private, you're evidencing that you're sovereign, or whatever it is that you're evidencing. We all have the right to call ourselves sovereigns and diplomats if we choose, but don't go trying to get paperwork for diplomatic immunity. I would give a big warning on that. Somebody did try a little while ago and it backfired big time, and it isn't something you should do, because diplomats are their process. But you can call yourself anything you want. But if you want to evidence the fact that you are in the private and you go through that motion, then the little corporations down the bottom end need dealing with, obviously, because nobody's running to them and handling your affairs for you at that stage. You've got to deal with it. So when these sort of claims come against you, you need to know how to actually stand on what your paperwork's informed them, and bring your paperwork forward and be able to enter it into a court if a court wanted you, or use it to bash a claim back. But you need to understand this shit, because you're evidencing that you're in the private and that you are private, and you're evidencing this is who you are. Now, some folks seem to think that they can evidence who they are and then be something totally different, like whatever they were in the first place. Scream and shout, kick and fuss, go protesting and all that sort of shit. That's pulling yourself into the public. Now you're not in the private. So it's one thing to evidence that you're in the private, but it's another thing to be in the private, which is really, as I always say to folks, what I do is when I help folks with that, I just turn things backwards. I can write the paperwork, but you absolutely have to learn to stand on it, because otherwise you're acting in the public and just thinking a piece of paper is bulletproof. You're saying who you are, and this is why the process is really laid out for you to actually learn first. You're supposed to find this, you're supposed to work your way through this, come to your own comprehension and understanding of who you are, and once you know who you are, that is who you are, because you naturally change throughout this process. I'm totally different to when I started in this process in many different ways, but intellectually my mind works differently now, purely because I've got a full understanding, and it's not an anger anymore. Plenty of things to be angry about what goes on in the system, but as far as the system's frauds, I absolutely get it. I've said before on a video, you get a collection of folks anywhere in any realm whatsoever, and some will gravitate to control and some will want to be led. If you're going to let people control you, that control over time gets tighter and tighter, and they get ideas way above the station, and then dreams and aspirations, because they've now created such a divide in between the haves and have-nots, purely because the have-nots wanted to look up to somebody. But they get this divide, and now they believe that they are better. So now they want to eradicate you, maybe, or put you down further, keep you ill, to make more money from you from pharmaceuticals, give you drink and sports to entertain you in the weekends while you're grafting your balls off all the way through the week, just to be able to pay to survive, and you're still not getting it, that you're only paying to survive, but you're still consenting to it, and your brains can't work out how to do it any other way. So you say to people, well, I need money, what can I do? Your brains need to alter how they work, and I can't do that for you. Just the very progression of learning what it's all about, and learning the traps you're in and why you're in these traps, and how they've educated you to be in these traps, uneducating yourself, unlearning all that shit that they've pumped into your head and indoctrinated into your head, to the point where you believe this is how it is now. And even as I'm saying this, there's things that you don't even know you're indoctrinated about, and it's not an insult, it's me too. I often find things that I suddenly realise, even nowadays, I realise, wow, it's just another indoctrination. And it happens all the time, and when you start recognising that, you can start breaking down them barriers. And that's a huge part to not just learning the law, learning any of the truth or aspects, but learning who you are, and reconstructing your mind as, and I wouldn't say as it should have naturally formed, because it isn't. You've been defrauded, you've been scammed, you've been subjugated by subjugation all this time, and now all of a sudden you suddenly learn, no, actually I haven't, I'm just consenting to it. It's all me doing it, because I didn't learn. Yes, they didn't teach me, and I had no way to find this to start off with in my life, but when I did find it, I got my head in it and I started working at it, as some of you are doing, and as we all must, because as you start working your head through it, bit by bit, different times for different folks, depends where you are, but if you get stuck down these rabbit holes that will absolutely take you the wrong way and won't let go of you, the amount of folks that tell me they've signed up with common law court, and it's not the end of the world, it's just a contract, you can revoke it, but all these that just are not doing what they say they're doing, it doesn't do what it says on the tin. And no matter how loud they shout, no matter how much backing by the algorithms, the governments, or whatever else the other agencies push, or just the fucking brainwashed, it don't matter. Folks need to wake up to the reality. It's all contractual. It is all contractual. It needs your consent. You just don't know how you're consenting. They're fooling the consent from you. It's all tacit agreements. They're getting your consent by your acquiescence. It forms a binding contract. All this, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're doing. Oh, fucking yeah, coronavirus. Yeah, fuck it. Well, I personally rebutted it, and I sent a rebuttal into Twat Hancock. Although my original paperwork covered it anyway, but I have OCD on this sort of thing. So I absolutely rebutted the Coronavirus Act. And it doesn't matter about it changing at law, because you're not going to change the fucking agendas. You need to change how it affects you. Because if they ever tried to take you into courts over anything like that, you've covered this shit. They're in acquiescence. Their acquiescence created a binding contract with you. The only contract at hand at the minute is the one with you. You need to learn to turn everything around on them, what they do to you, and it's just exactly what I do with every single factor of it. It's all what they do to us. They get us in tacit agreements, create these contracts that are binding by our acquiescence. Well, affidavits of truth. A living flesh and blood man cannot, it has to be a living flesh and blood man or woman to rebut an affidavit of truth. These corporations can't rebut it. They can't rebut anything that you put in that affidavit of truth. So think about it. Get creative. Don't lie. It's an affidavit of truth. Don't ever lie and don't ever expand on the truth, but get creative with how you're finding the truth and what truths you put in there. Acquiescence creates a binding contract. You can create any contract you like with the government if you put your thought into their acquiescence that is going to come from your affidavit of truth. It's the truth. It's truth and judgment in any court. So just think wisely on that. Think wisely. And I'm not just saying get your head down and start writing affidavits. I'm telling you how to think. I'm not here to teach. There's loads of folks out there blowing smoke up your ass, telling you that they know what they're doing and telling you this, that and the other. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm trying to get you thinking on the right realms. This is why I talk about the things I do in the way I do, rather than sit down and explain processes piece by piece. Because when you explain a process to somebody, it's only as good as their comprehension of that process. And usually their comprehension is not very good when they first hear it, nor would mine be when I first hear a process. You need to comprehend it, you need to get your head in it, study it, but folks aren't looking to do that. They're looking to hear something, maybe get a template and send it. They hardly read it, and if they do, it's a scan through once and then they've sent it. You're all guilty of it that sent a template, and I know it. And it's nothing learned at all. When you could have sat down and just learned that, and that just learning one template, what it was about, why it worked, what it was doing, the words it used, just that shows you in yourself how this thing works. Deal with enough of this, look at enough of this, write enough. You write them, but don't send them, just write things, and then you can compare them later to how you'd write them a month later or 2 months later with your understanding of what's going on. And you'll see how it changes. Then you'll see the need to actually slow it down a little bit and learn, do it right. Once you're thinking right, you will have the answer to every single problem in the world that can come to you on that fraudulent level. The answers are always there. It's not that you're clever, it's now your mind's working on the right realm. It's working on the right things. Just like any problem solver. It doesn't matter whether you're working in a mundane factory job doing something, or whether you're working in an office on calculations or laboratories or anything. We all know something that somebody else doesn't know, and we're all capable of knowing something that somebody else knows. We may not all be capable of learning something to that level. We're not all built the same. We don't all learn at the same level, but we can all know this shit. This shit, what I talk about, the law especially, is not just for clever folks. It really isn't. It's for anybody who puts their mind into it. And when you start reading things carefully and you start looking into it and start realizing the game, it actually gets quite fascinating, no matter what level of intelligence you believe you stand at. Because how are you even defining your intelligence? Are you defining your intelligence by the levels of what the corporate indoctrination system would like you educated to? How many degrees you've got, or did you get your O levels, A levels, or whatever the fucking qualifications are called nowadays? They have to switch the names every couple of generations, don't they? But do you really think that anybody's more intelligent than you? It's all fake. Of course, we all come across dumb shits, and we can all be dumb shits to somebody. It just is what it is. We're all just folks. We're all trying to get through this same shithole. Don't ever think you're above or below anybody. Nobody is. Nobody is. We're all the same. In fact, those that feel that they're above everybody, I'd pretty much say they're a little step below, really, aren't they? They really are, because they don't get it at all. And it seems to me that the more intelligent you actually are, the harder it is to break through this indoctrination, because you've got more of it loaded in. Now, I know some real intelligent folks that have really broke through this indoctrination, and the fact that they were intelligent in the first place through that system and then woke up to it fully It's given them a whole new perspective, and they excel in this world because their brains are already thinking how to think. They've learned how to think. They know how to think. They know how to work things out. The fact that the old realm was showing them the wrong subjects is immaterial. Now they're applying it to here. They're thinking right in the first place, so they're absolutely excel. But for you folks that don't know and don't get it yet, as you're learning bit by bit, don't try and push it. Learn at your own level, but get advice from folks who know this shit rather than just bullshit. You can watch a load of shit, but do your due diligence to find out whether it's worthy, because a lot of stuff sounds really good, just like the demonic shit I was talking about earlier. It looks and sounds right. And lots of folks on YouTube channels can talk and sound bang right in everything they say. Magna Carta is one of the things I will say. It looks and sounds absolutely bang right. You read it, you put it, you look at its history, and you absolutely it should stand. It don't. It's as simple as that. I mean, what do you want to do? Jump up and down, scream and shout? You know what does stand? Consent. When you remove it properly. And you actually stand on it correctly. It's not just about I've got a piece of paper, I'm bulletproof. You need the knowledge. You need to know how to stand on that shit. Anyway, wow did I bounce. I didn't even know where that was going. But this is what you get with me. It will always be from the heart. You'll very, very rarely get anything pre-planned from me. I won't do it because as soon as I start pre-planning it, I feel like it's bullshit. Even though it might be absolute true, it's not me. I don't do that. And I know some great folks who pre-plan and give you absolute truths. And Robert Observation Deck, I'm going to give you a shout out here. Here's one. I don't recommend many folks at all. Most folks know that. I won't recommend many, but I will recommend Robert. And just keep your eyes on him in the next few weeks, folks. That's all I'm going to say. But folks, Observation Deck, yeah, have a good one on that one. I'm going to leave it at that, and have a great one. Stay safe and learn some shit, but most of all, learn to learn and learn to unlearn. Don't sweat the little things, and don't be afraid of the things that seem too scary to look at, as not the demonic shit again. Be afraid of that shit and stay away. Best advice I can give you. But the law and such like, don't be afraid of things, just get in it, and yeah, don't be afraid of anything. Just get your arse into things and learn some shit. You've got to learn. That's what you've got to do, and don't be afraid to accept you're wrong, because we all are about many things, and it's learning what we're wrong about which makes us right. So be prepared to accept, and especially those that have been in this game a long time. I know quite a few that are absolutely stuck, and this is not a message to anybody. I know a few that are absolutely stuck where they are, and I do try to always tell them, but I think because they've been in it a long time, it comes across as an insult. It's not like I've been in it a fortnight, but I think they always feel a little bit insulted when somebody says, like, you've been in it so fucking long, you're stuck in your ways, you need to take a step back and get a fresh approach. And what I find a lot of the times is some of these long-termers that have been in here that haven't quite gotten to what they're doing. They may have learned to make some money in it, so they've happily settled at that because they didn't get anywhere. They believe nothing works, and maybe you're just stuck in your ways, and it's not an insult. Come out of your box, come out of your box, because you've got a mind of information, amazing information. Some of these old timers in this game can rattle off things just so, and I suppose I do as well, because I'm an old timer as well now. But when I hear it and I hear them rattling it off, but then they won't listen to the one bits that they're missing. Listen a little bit, folks, because you guys, if you got on the right track with the knowledge you've got, you could fucking fix the world. That's all I'm saying. There's so many of them, and if they got their fucking heads together and all got on the right track, phenomenal. Getting heads together is always brilliant. Bounce something off each other at similar levels and start bouncing things off each other, and the things you will come up with are phenomenal. So just chit chat, bounce your ideas about, even if they're daft. Don't matter Don't matter. Nobody's laughing at anybody in this search for justice. So folks, only them laughing at us. I'm going to leave it at that, and hey, I hope you enjoyed the bounce. The real gumshoe. Have a good one. Ta-da.